Warning, this is going to upset some people. Guess what? Mexico City is not perfect. And in order for you to have the very best trip that you possibly can when you come, I want you to know the good, the bad, and the ugly about Mexico City. Today we're going to talk about 10 things I hate about Mexico City. Stick around to the end because number 10 is a doozy and I'm sure you do not expect it. Hey, it's Sarah. I've lived in Mexico for 10 years and I'm your guide to authentic experience in Mexico. Make sure you grab my Explore Mexico City cheat sheet down below. The first thing I hate about Mexico City is the trash. Now, when I say trash, I mean quite a lot of things actually. First of all, there seems to be more of a littering culture in Mexico than in many other places. Part of that probably is because the trash system is not that great in Mexico. It's kind of a pain. And when you visit Mexico City, you're going to notice that there's not a lot of trash cans. This will vary greatly depending on which area of Mexico City that you are in. But for the most part, I find that trash is a problem in Mexico and it's kind of gross. The second thing I can't stand about Mexico City is the noise. Se compra colchones. The noise is insane in Mexico City. I mean, first of all, you've got the noise just from being in a huge city with lots of people, the noise of the vehicle, the noise of the metro, and then there's just a noise culture in Mexico. It's one of the most irritating things to me is when people walk around in public with their boombox. Yes, I have seen boomboxes still. Their boombox or their cell phone just playing music out loud walking around in the streets. One of the worst things is when they do this on the metro. It is, to me, it's just the most redneck trailer trash thing you could do, playing your music full blast while you're trapped in a confined space with people. Please! Have a little courtesy for your fellow passengers. There's also a huge noise culture in Mexico when it comes to stores. This is, to me, is very, very irritating, but they'll put out huge speakers out in front of a store and be just blasting music and having scantily clad girls dancing around. It's been explained to me that this is in order to catch people's attention so that they'll be willing to look at the store and come in. I guess this is a different culture because for me, I run as far away from that store as I can because I just can't. I can't stand the noise. It drives me crazy. So noise is a problem in Mexico City. The third thing I hate about Mexico City is the traffic. And by traffic, I mean the cars, but also the amount of people. There are about 22 million people in the greater Mexico City area, and they all tend to crowd into the city center around certain times of the week. I seriously won't go shopping at certain times, especially weekends, absolutely not. And I really won't go shopping after 2 or 3 p.m. on a weekday, just because the line can wrap around the supermarket on a regular basis. It's not like this is a Black Friday deal where there's a lot of people once in a while. It's a regular occurrence in Mexico City. There are so many people in Mexico City. So when you visit Mexico City, be ready for crowds and be ready to stand in line for things. That's why I recommend that you do a lot of things like weekday mornings. Sidebar, don't try to go to museums on Mondays because most of them are closed. Are you looking for a tour guide to help you get around Mexico City and see some of the top sites? Check out SenorSarahsClassroom.com to book a tour with us today. The fourth thing I hate about Mexico City is that no one ever has change. This is one of the most irritating things about Mexico, but nobody ever wants to give you change for anything. They would prefer to lose a client than sell you something and give you change. Now, I'm not talking about the little mom and pop street vendor on the corner that probably genuinely doesn't have change. They might sell you things for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 pesos, and it will be hard for them to have change if you try to pay for something with a 100 peso bill. But even places like McDonald's, they don't want to give you change. This whole I don't have change culture drives me insane. I feel like it is the responsibility of the employees to get their butts in the back and get some change in that cash register. There is no reason why you as a customer should have to worry about making sure you always have exact change in your pocket. True story. I recently went to the post office with 20 pesos. 20 pesos. And I was going to buy a 7 peso stamp. And they didn't want to give me change for 20 pesos. Sidebar, if you want to see a brief overview of the Post Palace that I was at, check out this video up in the cards. This concept of not having change for customers just blows my mind. So when you're in Mexico City, make sure that you have plenty of small bills and even coins. And yes, I mean Mexican pesos, not US dollars. They're not going to work for you in Mexico City. The next thing that drives me crazy that I hate about Mexico City is broken stuff. Now, I just have to say it. The truth is, there's a lot of things that just get broken and they don't get fixed in Mexico City. Remember, this is an absolutely humongous city, as I have said in so many videos, and I feel like maybe there's just too many people and it's hard to keep up with fixing stuff. Several times I have been on public transportation, even the newer public transportation, I mean built within the past couple of years, and the machines to buy a transportation card or to put a recharge on your transportation card were broken. Brand new, broken. And then that means you've got a huge line alongside any other machine to do a recharge or to buy your transportation card because the other one is broken. These big lines can happen super fast because there's so many people in Mexico City. In a matter of minutes, you can have a super long line, and that can kind of make or break whether or not you show up on time to a place. I've also seen escalators. Many times the escalators are broken and they'll just put a little barrier in front of it so you can't use it. Now, personally, for me, that's just irritating. But for some people, that might be an actual mobility issue. I don't really like climbing up a humongous flight of stairs, but there are some people that would be a real physical challenge. And so this culture of just slapping a piece of paper up on something that says it doesn't work, to me, is just unacceptable. Don't wait to get to the station that you absolutely need to board, hoping that you'll be able to do a recharge, because that's just not always the case. The next thing that I can't stand about Mexico City is what I'm going to call the lack of standards or organization. Now, this is a little bit hard to quantify because this varies extremely from business to business, from hotel to hotel, from organization to organization. But generally, there's a lack of standard when it comes to how things are done, how things are run, and what you can expect in different places. I feel like in the United States, you just have a certain level of the way that things are done because that's just the society standard. Of course, you have different customer service experiences in different businesses in the United States, right? But the variation in the United States is like here, and the variation in Mexico is like all over the place, right? You will have top-notch customer service in some places, and you're gonna have like absolute horrible experiences in other places. And those two places could be right beside each other. So it's a little bit stressful, never quite knowing what you can expect. And this kind of lends itself to this culture of, before you do anything, you really need to have a word of mouth recommendation to know that you're going to get what you expect and you're going to get something that you like. The next thing that I can't stand about Mexico City is about medicine, and that's you kind of have to fend for yourself medically. This point kind of ties into the last one about that lack of standards and expectation. You can get fantastic medical care in Mexico, and the prices are amazing, but you never quite know what to expect unless you get a word of mouth recommendation. Whenever you're sick and you need a doctor, that can be really stressful. You also have to fend for yourself in the sense that when you get into that doctor, they are not going to tell you all of the information that you usually would expect from a doctor back home in the United States. For example, if there are side effects for a medication that they're prescribing, you have to ask for those. If you have any allergies to a certain medication, you're probably going to have to mention that. If there are certain foods you should or should not be eating with that medication, or if there's a certain time of day you should take it or not take it, you will have to ask that question. So the idea here is that you're going to have to fend for yourself and really, in a much larger way, be your own advocate when it comes to medical things in Mexico. The next thing I hate about Mexico City is the smells. This is admittedly an unpleasant thing to talk about, but you gotta be ready. There are plenty of weird smells in Mexico City. There are some streets where it seems like a public bathroom for the homeless, and so yeah, there's some of those smells happening in certain parts of Mexico City. Also, the drainage system. If it rained recently and there's a lot of like water flowing through the drains, the smells will come out of those like vents in the ground, and it smells so bad. So if you're walking past one of those drains just make sure you hold your nose automatically. The next thing that I can't stand about Mexico City is the corruption. Now, that's probably going to ring some alarm bells. Let me preface this point by saying the corruption has improved drastically over the past few years. This really hinges on who is in office. So the corruption problem isn't as bad as it was 5-10 years ago, but there are still some things that you just don't openly see as much happening in the United States like they do here in Mexico. For example, it's not uncommon for police to pull you over just to try to extort money out of you. That's more Mexico State, not so much Mexico City, but it does happen. Several years ago, I heard someone who was picked up and arrested based on false charges just because the police wanted a bribe. Now, it's been a long time since I've heard of something like that happening, but it did happen right here in Mexico City. This is not something that I hear of a lot in the United States. Forgive my ignorance, maybe it's happening more than it used to, but it is something that you have to be aware of in Mexico City. You cannot automatically just trust people because they're officials or policemen. You should always be ready to be your own advocate and carefully weigh information that you are given before just believing someone, even if they're in a position of authority. And finally, that bonus tip that will surprise you, the last thing I can't stand about Mexico City is the bathroom situation. I bet you didn't expect me to say that, but seriously, the bathrooms are a problem in Mexico. Most of the time, it seems like bathrooms are just an afterthought. Now, you remember back a few minutes ago when I talked about the standards varying wildly? That is the case here too. I have been in some of the most beautiful bathrooms of my life in Mexico, and I have been in some places where I would have rather gone in the woods, okay? The bathroom situation is a problem. First of all, you have to pay to use the bathroom in Mexico City. Yes, you heard me correctly. You have to pay to go to the bathroom. This is something that took me a really long time to emotionally accept in my heart, because I feel like it is just so deeply morally wrong that you have to pay to use the bathroom. But 10 years later, I finally come to accept that there's nothing I can do to change this, and so I just make sure I have money with me to go to the bathroom. The bathroom typically costs around 6 pesos in Mexico City, although it could cost more. In the Sears in front of Bellas Artes, it's 10 pesos. Don't go there. It's not only the concept that you have to pay to go to the bathroom that really surprises me and frustrates me, but the quality of the bathroom, once again, varies wildly. Here's another boat pro tip that may save your rear end. Pun intended, you always should bring either napkins or toilet paper with you. You cannot expect anything when it comes to the bathrooms in Mexico City. That's one of my cardinal rules, actually. Expect nothing, be prepared for everything, and be surprised whenever you get something. So make sure you bring your toilet paper. Make sure you bring your hand sanitizer, and you're definitely not going to expect a purse hook in the bathroom in Mexico City. Oh yeah, and you'll become an expert on figuring out how to balance yourself and stick your foot up to keep the door shut. Yeah, I had to do that a few times. Which of these 10 things did you like the most or the least? Comment below. Binge watch the rest of my content about Mexico City and subscribe. Nos vemos!